Well, thank you very much for talking to Dark Matter. Your Wikipedia bio reads like a list of science fiction and horror TV series and movies. Why have you chosen this genre in particular?
Well, the great thing is that I didn't really choose any genre. I've had the great fortune of doing all sorts of things. And the fun thing is that when you get involved in any kind of genre work, each specific genre claims you as their own because they're not really that interested necessarily in other genres. And occasionally, one of the things that occasionally there'll be a crossover project that suddenly you have people from all these different genres coming together and saying, oh, I'm actually watching you on Hell on Wheels, for example. I've had a number of people from the genre groups coming and saying, oh, watching Hell on Wheels is love westerns. So, there are a few things that bring it all together.
Dr. Gillian Polack says that with your connection to Thor Heyerdahl, you're the most solid link between the Kon Tiki Expedition and Bigfoot.
I love that. That's great. I'm going to have to look up that quote. That's brilliant. Very possible.
Actually, that was on Twitter last night.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's fantastic. I love that. I've never thought of that before, and it's absolutely true. Yeah, that's great.
You've played a number of roles in science fiction television series, and often more than one character in a series. How do you manage that?
It's pure luck, I guess. Perhaps, and what is luck? Preparation and opportunity. So the preparation comes out of doing a lot of mask work. When I was going to school, a lot of the classical training you do is in mask. And having an understanding of that, I think, helps a lot, especially when you have the opportunity to play two characters who don't look anything alike. You're not playing twins or something. And so having an opportunity to play Bigfoot, for example, John Druitt, two, depending on what you believe, two historical characters. And then being able to play Halling and Todd in Stargate Atlantis. Again, being able to put on the mask and then having actually a beard and long hair for the other character.
Yep.
So it's just a great opportunity, and it certainly keeps you busy, which is always a great thing. When you're on set here, I was just talking to somebody else about the amount of hours of waiting. And the great thing about playing two characters is you don't really tend to do a lot of waiting because you're either in makeup for one or transforming into the next. So it definitely fills the day, and it's a great challenge because also when you're on set and how people react to you, depending on what character you're playing, people react to you completely differently, and that's purely based on a visual. So it's a lot of fun to play with that aspect of it as well.
I'm really good at actually picking actors just on the voice alone, and yet it wasn't until I actually started researching things that I realised that you were Biggie in Sanctuary. So how do you achieve that?
I think it comes out of the corporal exploration of a character. With Biggie, I tried to think of the fact that he had this massive chest and just this huge body and that resonance. What would the sound of a body like that be? And what would be his guttural utterance? And so I just played with it. And the final thing is seeing yourself with the mask on, with all that hair, getting the body on, putting the feet on. Bigfoot it's a major part of the costume, and finding the way he moved, and then the voice came out of that.
Did you ever get to keep any of the costume? I know some of the hobbits kept hobbit feet and ears.
Yeah, I'm not really much for keeping big articles. I think you don't have anything from Biggie. I have a few little tiny things that I've kept from different characters that I've done. But I try and keep it small because I'm lucky enough to have a number of characters on the list, as you're saying. And so if I had big things from every one of them, I would need another home just for the artifacts. And that's not something so I just try and keep it small, little bits of memorabilia.
Yeah. Brendan Podger asks, you've worked on... This is a fan of yours.
Yeah.
A fan of yours. You've worked on so many different projects. Why did you choose to work on the web episodes of Sanctuary?
That's a good question. Because I was working with Martin Wood, and he had approached me and said that Damien Kindler has come up with this great idea, and these are the characters we're wanting to. We did a 5-minute teaser to try and get some investors involved, and so we did that 5-minute teaser, and that went well. They said yes, we're going to be doing these episodes, and they asked me to be involved again. I think that it's certainly the way of the future. We might have been a little bit ahead of the curve.
Yes.
But you always need somebody to lead the way, and so getting involved in something like that at the ground level is really an exciting, stimulating thing to be involved in. So I think I would have been a fool to say no to that. And all the characters were interesting, and everything about it was fascinating.
Where did you expect Sanctuary to go?
Oh, I had high expectations, I must admit. I mean, off the top, we were talking about gaming, we were talking about interactive online applications, so that if you liked one particular character, you could follow that character. Instead of following the main action of the piece, you could be deciding to go down a tertiary path. And that sounded really exciting to me. I'd seen a number of plays where they had different endings. And each night, depending on what somebody did on stage, would determine what the ending would be, what the path was, just much like in life, our choices that we make. And to have that interactive quality was really quite intriguing to me, and I thought that's a show that I would love to be a part of. So again, that made me want to be involved as well. So there were so many aspects of that show that were really that we dreamt would be possible, and it ended up being much more mainstream and just simply a television application. But those dreams we had were pretty fun to explore until we realized that it just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. Has Slocum asked, which character is your favourite out of Todd from Atlantis and Biggie from Sanctuary, and why?
That's a good question. I've been asked that a number of times, and I've always given the answer that they're both characters that I love. So I'll talk a little bit about, Todd. I love Todd in as much as that he has such age behind him, 10,000 years old, and he's a survivor. I always find that they're playing with the idea of somebody, what does it take to survive 10,000 years when you're really almost the only other creature of your history that has lived that long. So what do you do in order to survive for that amount of time? And that's something I really enjoyed watching, because he's a very wily and creative character, and so that was a wonderful part of just letting that percolate in the back of my mind. And Biggie's another iconic character people believe in or don't believe in, and maybe he's real, maybe he's not real, and to try and play again with that. How old is he? He's definitely maybe 120, 130 years old. He's got some age, at least from human years. It's quite interesting to play with, and to try and get into the skin of somebody like that again no one believes in and everyone's terrified of. He's lived a life, certainly humans, where they try to shoot him, they try to kill him, they're terrified of him, and to try and live in that place of being this huge, massive dangerous, possibly dangerous beast, but he just has this amazing, kind, protective heart.
And it was a bit naughty too.
Yeah, very naughty, and I think that's the wonderful thing of having a character like that. It has the opportunity to do that, because that only comes out of a place of safety, and of course the Sanctuary and Helen Magnus, and she's able to create that, and that kind of warmth and beauty is a great thing to explore.
What was your favourite storyline from either of those shows?
I think for Todd, it really it goes back to the beginning. I really enjoyed the first episode when he gets together with Shepard in the prison cell, and they together, these two unlikely comrades have to work together in order to survive. And there's something wonderful in this human man giving hope where hope has somewhat been lost in this creature that is his enemy. He doesn't know who he is, he just hears a voice. To him, he just is a man, not a prisoner. And it's wonderful to have no prejudice. We're so very visually, we judge within 3 seconds of whether or not we like somebody based on a visual. And to have that opportunity not to be able to see the person you're talking to, so that you're judging purely on your oral understanding of who that person is. So that, I think, still remains as my favorite episode.
Yeah. You've worked on both stage and the screen. What are the pros and the cons of the different media?
Well, the great thing about being on stage is that you have a certain period of time of rehearsal, so it's always wonderful to be able to work with your compatriots and rehearse from beginning to end and discover the play or the story through that process. And then you're telling the story once you get on stage. You're telling the story from the beginning to the end, which is wonderful. In film and television, it's much more of a disparate telling of a tale, at least from the perspective of the people, the actors and the film or television directors, in the way that they're telling the story. That could be telling the end of the story on the first day, the middle of the story, and the third day, and how to then create the whole without having experienced each step of the way. So it can be very challenging and quite interesting in trying to figure it out ahead of time. And if you make big choices, one of the greatest things is to make big choices. But if you're making a big choice at the end, how do you get there? Then do you get there? And that's always an interesting challenge. So there's something very immediate about theater. If you do something, you can hear and feel what that connection is to your audience. In film and television, it's a little more difficult to know how that is going to be received. And it's always an interesting thing to see the finished product, because certainly as an actor, what you do in front of the camera is not necessarily how it's going to be cut together by the editor. You have the producer putting in input, you have the director giving input, you have the editor giving input, and everyone becomes such a group effort to the final product, and you have much less control about what the audience ends up seeing. So it's really it's interesting to then go and see the screening, the final screening, and to see what became. So very different mediums, and they both have their pleasurable aspects and less pleasurable aspects.
What's the best part of seeing a screening?
I think it's just that. It's getting to see what everyone has done. There are so many people who are involved in making a film. You see the credits at the end, and more and more we become amazed at how many people are actually involved in bringing that to this fruition that is the final cut. And so it's exciting, and usually you're invited to a screening where you get to see everybody and shake people's hands and applaud their work. Everyone gets to stand up and be applauded, and that's something that happens very rarely once it's let go into the world, it doesn't tend to happen again. Most of the time when you're in a cinema, you don't tend to applaud at the end of a screening. Very rarely. It's funny, actually, when it happens, it's a wonderful thing to witness, because it feels, I guess, because it feels so immediate. So when that happens, it's pretty cool.
Does it give you a sense of closure, so that you kind of then let go of this project that's kind of a bit of a baby? Or
I think probably for a director, absolutely that would be the case. For me as an actor, I'm only an actor, I tend to let go of it from the moment that I finish shooting that scene, because that's the moment that I have no longer any kind of input to make on the project. Once the scene is shot, all those choices are gone, and that's your last. Usually you're offered, do you want to have one more take, and once that's done, it's done. So for me, I let it go at that moment, and then it's just interesting to see what everyone else's work has contributed to creating this wonderful project. Hopefully we enjoy what we see, right? And so it's always a tenuous thing, I think, again, more for producers and directors and editors than anyone else.
if you could play any role on stage or screen, what role would you choose?
I would choose to continue playing the Swede, Thor on Hell on Wheels. It's a character that I've been asked a number of times, what is your favorite role? And until last year, I played HP Lovecraft in a short film called Out of Mind, and HP Lovecraft was the character that really stuck out for me and touched me. And now Thor the Swede, is now taken the mantle as my favorite character to play. So that, and I haven't let him go yet. So we'll see what happens there. Hopefully, I'll be able to continue playing him next year.
What are you planning to talk about at Armageddon?
We'll see. I mean, that's the great thing about going to these shows, is that we never really know what people are going to ask, and who knows what's going to happen. It becomes. I haven't done theater in a long time, and one of the great things about doing these shows is that you get to go on stage and see what happens. And so I'm looking forward to that, connecting with the fans and people who are interested in the shows that we've all done, and have a chance to. And in some ways you forget, you think about any projects that you do, or vacations or times with family. You come together with people who have had those similar experiences, and you're reminded again of wonderful times that you've forgotten. And so that happens a lot in these events, where you're brought back to a really wonderful moment, and again, that has resonated with people who are watching the shows. And so having that opportunity is really enjoyable and spontaneous and surprising and playful. It's fun, so I'm looking forward to that.
Would you mind doing your Biggie thing?
My Biggie thing, I can't really do my Biggie thing without being in Biggie, as I say, and that's the thing. With him, it's wonderful. He's I'm unrecognizable visually in Biggie. I'm somewhere deep inside the soul that is Biggie. So to do him, to imitate him, I think might be a slighting of the wonderful beast that he is.
Well, thank you very much for talking to Dark Matter.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you.